What is up, everybody? We are rolling audio here today on episode 299 of The Hotter Show, which is the Saturday Nights Alright for a Livecast, folks. We're going to have a good time here today. I hope you guys are doing fantastic. Thank you so very much. The video I put up today, Adam says YouTube. That says Facebook because I thought I was going to do YouTube until literally like 2 hours ago. So yeah, we're doing the Facebook thing because that's just what we are going to do here because I was not able to get the software to work properly for the YouTube, but that's okay because we're gonna have fun here today. Hopefully everybody is going to be able to find everything okay to come over onto the Facebook here. But first, before we go any further, it's Saturday night. It's all right for a live cast, folks, and it's all right for a nice, refreshing, ice cold Moosehead Lager. So, cheers to that, folks. Oh, that is fantastic. That is fantastic. Whew. Yeah, when I made the post about the YouTube, that I was going to do it on YouTube, I completely forgot about the fact that my Mac doesn't work anymore. So when I made the post, I was like, I'll figure something out. And literally today, as I was kind of getting ready to do things, I was like, oh yeah, I can't do YouTube Live because I tried to do it with the Acer, but that old thing just cannot handle the live software, but that is okay. We're here on the Facebook, and we're going to have ourselves a good time. We already got some people hopping in here. What's up, everybody? Be sure to comment, join in the chat. If you have any questions or anything, feel free to ask. Cheers to everybody. But I appreciate the heads up on that, Adam. Yeah, I meant to go back and change it, but the video I posted earlier, I tried to make sure I specified it was going to be on the Facebook. Oh, what did I just do? Uh-oh. There we go. I pressed the little thing to make it go. I haven't used Facebook Live in a while. Thank you, Woody. We got Ryan Wood here, who, of course, is one of the co-hosts of Mikes and Beers. What's up, brother? How's it feel on getting to 299? It's awesome. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit because I have some reminiscing to do and everything, which is a lot of fun. Big shouts to Adam. Adam, thank you very much, man, for coming in and hanging out and for all your support and everything. Of course, Jason Reese, J Digital Arts. What can I say? The man who designed this T-shirt and designed so much stuff for this podcast. I cannot thank you enough, brother, for everything that you do for the podcast. And who else we got in here? Ryan again. Sounds like a start from Mikes and Beers. I mean, basically anytime I do a podcast and I'm having an alcoholic beverage, it's basically Mikes and Beers. I mean, I did create it, so, whatever. Roy, what's up, man? I didn't expect to see you jump on here since you're at the concert, but good to see you coming in. Beer, yeah, buddy. Cheers. It's not, what were you drinking the other night? Mango, oh gosh, what was it? Something mango, some mango beer or something. But that's okay. Say hi to everybody for me who's working. If you guys need some burgers, you can kind of see, I forgot how close up it is. But right back there, folks, Peter Burgers. You can kind of see the T-shirt. Check it out, man. Good stuff. And, of course, Till Death. If you need some barbecue, you got to go see Till Death, man. That's the way to go. My two favorite places to eat in the whole world, and they just so happen to work together. So that's good for me. Love you too, Jason. Thanks for everything, brother. Breaking the line. Roy, of course. How is it so far? I know you were posting earlier that Adam Gontier is laughing that I have the 30 Days Grace 1X back there. I can't even pronounce his last name. that he was doing sound check earlier, and so that should be a good time. Looking forward to that. I mean, good time. I got some people who were heading down to see the concert, and I made sure I commented and said, go see my friends at Peter Burgers and at Till Death. So I was going to see, maybe you guys will get some, if anyone comes up, and I mention your boy. Yeah, Jason, we'll for sure make that happen. I don't know when, but whenever for some reason you get us, you get down here for some reason, especially once I get into my new place, you come down, we'll hang out, we'll do a podcast or something, and then we'll go get Peter Burgers. Or maybe we'll do it on it. How are we going to pull that off? Well, what we'll do is we'll get the Peter Burgers, but we'll get the Till Death Burger. So, like, you're kind of getting the best of both worlds. So, we'll get you hooked up on that. I think I missed someone here. Sorry, guys. The way I'm doing this is not great to keep up with the chat. I'm just realizing. Linda, hey, thank you very much. Mikes and Beers, which is a great podcast, by the way. You guys can go check it out on the YouTube and the Spotify and the Anchor and the Stitcher, Apple Podcasts as well. Anywhere you check out this podcast, you can check out Mikes and Beers as well. Soundtrack was great. Show starting soon. Awesome. So who's all playing tonight, Roy? I know, obviously, Adam and Cale Grantier, and then the Cheers are, which is going to be awesome. But I think I saw you say someone else is playing too. Excuse me. Peter Burgers is on the to-do list. Yeah, man, for sure, Jason. We'll get that happen. Ryan Wood, so give us a rundown on Peter Burgers. I see you promote them, but never had them. Basically, all you really got to know about Peter Burgers is all their stuff is handmade. It is phenomenal. I consider myself a burger connoisseur. Okay, I really do. Like, it's literally like, if I could have it my way, I just eat burgers every day. And the thing with Peter Burgers is not only do they have like really cool creations they do, like for example, the PB&J burger, which is really, really good. And it sounds kind of strange, but it's really good. Or the Peter pickle, which is my favorite, which is they got the deep fried pickles and like a nice sauce on it. It's really, really good. They have other stuff too, obviously. They got tons of really cool creations. But on top of that, they're really, really good people. And their customer service is second to none. I cannot say enough wonderful things about the crew over at Peter Burgers. And I said that before I kind of got to know them and got to be buddies with them. But man, if you even remotely enjoy hamburgers, you got to check out Peter Burgers. You have to, because it's the best hamburger I've ever had. And not saying something, because I've had a lot of hamburgers in my lifetime. So big shout outs to them and all their support. And they have great taste in music, and they are supporters of this podcast. So cheers to Peter Burgers for everything they do. And also, for the record, Sam, my wonderful, beautiful fiance, isn't a huge fan of burgers. And she loves Peter Burgers. So, but if you go, you know what I actually had last night? I had the smash burger from Peter Burgers. And it is like they like smash the onions in and stuff. And they have the caramelized onions and cheese and their special secret burger sauce. And it is... I'm getting hungry thinking about it. Because it is that good. It's a really, really good burger. I tried to find some Spearhead lighter lager, for this podcast, but I was unable to find some, which is kind of a bummer. So LCBO, get on it, get some Spearhead lighter lager out there. But of course, I went with the old faithful, the Moosehead. Big shouts to Moosehead. When it comes to beer, can't go wrong with a nice Moosehead lager. Just like you can't go wrong with a nice Peter Burger. Or you can't go wrong if you need beard care products with me and Beard. Or if you need a graphic designer guy, you can't go wrong with Jay Bridges Arts, which I'm now realizing I have nothing I got nothing to show on my thing here. I was trying to find something for Jay Bridges Arts. Whatever. Anything you see that anything to do with graphics or anything, my guy Jason Reese, that's who takes care of it for me. And the t-shirt. Look at that. It's backwards because of it's not mirrored, but look at that. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Big shouts to everybody who helps make this podcast possible and all my friends. I'll get to all that later. I'm a sentimental person. Y'all know that, so I'll get to that a little bit later on. There's a couple of things I want to make sure I talk about before then. Ryan asks, so fellow, real question, how do you connect with people like Peter Burgers? Simply put, I mean, they were an interesting example because I literally just walked in their restaurant and really liked it. But when I was there, they had music playing that I was a big fan of. There was Alice in Chains, Pantera, and that's really how it started. I just became a good customer, and then over time you get to know people. And now we're buddies. So really, as far as connecting with people like Peter Burgers and Till Death and stuff like that, like, it's just, I try to be personable. I try to make sure that I am getting, I was trying to put myself out there anytime I'm in a situation where I meet somebody who is an interesting person or they have an interesting story or something like that. Not necessarily just for the podcast, but that is something I always think about. And I have a feeling there may be something a little bit later I'm going to announce to do with Peter Burgers and the Hotter Show, maybe, perhaps, but we'll see. But that's really how I connect with people like that, man. It's just like, it's like anything, right? You talk to people, you get to know people, and if you're lucky, you can meet great people like Rory and Nicole from Peter Burgers, and next thing you know, yes, you're a customer because I genuinely love their stuff, but then you get to have a relationship on top of that, and that's what life's all about, man. Honestly, that's really what it's all about. But as far as the fact that it is episode 299, and I'm changing things up because usually you guys know me, the milestones are really what I'm all about as far as when I do these live casts. I think the last one I did was 250. But these Saturday nights, all right, for a live cast thing is, I really had fun doing the last one because it was kind of a fun, random, impromptu thing. It wasn't like this big, huge hype thing. And originally my plan for episode 300 was to do a live cast, not like this. Like, I was going to do a different type of a setup. And something came up with an interview. Well, originally my plan was I was going to interview someone else, and due to COVID, we couldn't make that happen just because it was going to be tricky to get it going. We would have had to have done it over Skype or Zoom, and I don't want to do that with this person, with their interview. It's been a long time coming, so we're going to do it in person to make sure it is literally as awesome as we can get it. So I'm very much looking forward to that. But when I realized that I had a situation on my hands where I was going to do an interview with someone in person literally like a week ago, and I was like, man, we're doing this in-person interview. This is the first in-person interview I've done in forever, like literally since before COVID. And I'm like, man, this is going to be a really big deal. And I'm really, really excited about it because it's not what I would have normally planned for episode 300. But man, when I announce who it is, I think everyone's going to be pretty excited because I'm excited. And it's a really, really great interview. And I'm usually pretty hard on myself when it comes to my own content. And I think this is going to be one of my best episodes I've ever done because of the people I had on. Let's be real. That's why it was so good. So big shouts to that person. I'm going to announce a little bit who it is because I got to have some people tune in for some stuff, right? That's what it's all about. All about. Oh man. It's funny. Anytime I get to a milestone, I always like to go back and look at things for the Hotter Show. And I went all the way back to episode 45, 50. I went back and listened to a couple older episodes. Speaking about Ryan, I went back and actually listened to a couple of the Mikes and Beers that were on the Hotter Show. I went back and listened to a bunch of different content that had a few friends of mine that was people that I don't really I haven't had on the podcast in a while. Shouts to people like Garrett, shouts to people like Matt, Adam, who was here. I'm not sure, Adam, if you're still here, but I went back and listened to some of our stuff. And those were the early days of the Hotter Show, man. And it was really a lot of fun to go back and listen to that. And it's crazy to think how far things have come in just a couple of years, really. I mean, it's been 3 years, and it's been 250 or so episodes, but 230 episodes or whatever. But it's crazy, man. Like going back and realizing how far we've come with this, and there's people who are, you know, in the chat right now and who are watching who have been honestly been a big part of that and who have been supporting from day one. Like, I mean, Ryan, you've been a part of this from day one, so you know how much I appreciate you, and it's fun doing that. The 5-year anniversary special that I did, which if you guys haven't seen that or listened to it, it's a long one. It's about a 3-hour episode, but you guys should really go check it out, because it was every like 10 to like 30 minutes there's a new guest on, and excuse me, it was really, really fun to do that and to really do a deep dive into, okay, who do I want on the podcast, who was important to the podcast. And there's so many people I wanted to have on, and I really had to narrow it down, my list, because I think my original list I had like 17 people on it. And I was like, okay, let's narrow that down a little bit. But that was kind of the celebration, you know. But 300 episodes, man, it's a big deal. It honestly is, and I'm letting myself just be really happy about that, because it has been a wonderful, fun journey, but also it's been a hard journey, you know. This it's not always sunshine and rainbows and happiness. I mean, you know, Jason knows all about that, because there's been more than once where I've had venting sessions to him, and you know, it's fun. It's fun, and I love doing it. So that's the main part. Ryan, was it Mikes and Beers on this episode? It was. So when I went back and I listened to the very first Mikes and Beers on the Harder Show, which was, I had Garrett and Matt on, and during that episode I named it Mikes and Beers. Well, actually, at first I named it Beers and Mikes, and then I named it Mikes and Beers, and then I listened to a couple other ones, and then I got to the third edition of Mikes and Beers on the Harder Show, and that was the one you and Brandon and I did, and that one is just it is a write-off in the best of ways. And that was obviously before Mikes and Beers was its own podcast. But even back then, we were talking about making it its own thing. So it's kind of funny how that works out. Looking at how things are. 300 is so huge. Yeah, I mean, really, like, it's crazy to think about, man. Like, I was talking to a friend of mine who I work with, who actually is a big supporter of the podcast. And shouts Dylan, I appreciate it, buddy, if you happen to see this. And, you know, he was saying, like, oh, so, like, what's the plan from here, kind of? I'm like, well, plan is to keep rocking and rolling. I mean, the reality is, I think a couple of things I've tried to do really over the last year and a half or so is to try and branch out to different places of the world, if that makes sense. Like, I've had some guests on who I wouldn't normally have on, people who are outside of Canada and stuff like that, and that's fun. I'm definitely going to keep doing that. I've got some really fun interviews coming up that I'm really excited about. I think refocusing on what I really love to do, because at the end of the day, I'm doing this podcast because I love to do it. That is the only reason I'm still doing this podcast. Honestly, I love doing it, and if I can entertain one person for an hour, you know, or keep them company while they're on a drive or something like that, then awesome. That's, you know, that's a bonus. But at the end of the day, I do this for me and because it's fun, and that's all I'm worrying about at this point. Because if I worry about the other stuff, I'm gonna obsess about it, and I don't want to do that. Who wants to do that? I'm not worried about sponsors. I'm not worried about, you know, downloads and stuff like that, man. That's not what this is about anymore. And it never really was about that, honestly. There was a little bit there where I was really obsessing over things like that. And now I'm just having fun. This is an outlet for me, and that's really what it's all about, you know? Adam's still here. What's up, buddy? Man, Adam, real quick, the episode that you and I did with Matt, we did an episode that was called Pizza and Pop Party. There was some moments in that episode that are really, really funny. Like, it was really good, and feeling like grumpy old men, that was a kind of a, you know, That was not as good as the pizza and pop party one, but you were on fire on that pizza and pop party episode, man. You really were. That was a lot of fun. And it's cool because, like, looking back on those episodes when I was doing 2 a week, like, there was a lot of times I was kind of, for lack of a better term, pulling content out of my ass, you know? And it's something that it really made me better as far as when I have people on the show, because it, you know, I'm able to, when I'm speaking with someone, especially like, you know, I'm sure Adam, I'm sure you would admit that, like, you're not someone who would normally do something like that on your own, obviously, right? Like, that's just not your thing. And, you know, when you have someone on your show like that, especially back then, now it would be a totally different situation. I feel like I'd be way more, you know, a lot more loose and a lot more free flowing. But when you have a situation like that, it's very easy to lose sight of it. And there was only really a couple of times where I was like, oh man, like I should have said this or I should have pushed towards that. But like, looking back on it, it's like, man, even back then, it was just very fun and easy. And looking back, I can see, okay, here's all the progression I've made as far as a host or as an interviewer. And it's really cool to go back and look on that, you know? Ryan Wood, you talk about some hard moments. What was a moment of the Hodder show you found really difficult? Well, one thing that was, excuse me, holy cow. Adam, you make it easy. Thank you, Adam. Adam, I have to be careful because you have to be free or you will not free falling. Exactly, man. That's wise words from 2027's Man of the Year, Adam Litlop. If you obsess over stuff, you'll fall, man. And sorry, Woody, I am going to answer your question because it's a really good question and I have some things to say about it. But there was I'm not going to say any names, but there was a gentleman recently who started a podcast. Actually, there was 3 people I know recently who started podcasts who they reached out to me, wanted my advice, wanted my assistance. And I was like, I mean, absolutely, I love to, you know, sorry, I was just checking something there. I love to help out any way I can. I've made a lot of mistakes in podcasting, and a lot of things I've done in a way have not held back the growth of the show, but just like, and this isn't a negative thing, by the way, like, it's just like, there's some things I've done in the past, mostly when I started, that if I hadn't have done it that way, maybe the show would have grown more in the beginning. But it's one of those things where it's like, you live and learn, and you make mistakes and you learn from them. You always have to grow and learn in this life, or else it's going to get really boring really quick. But it is true, Adam, for sure. But Woody, as far as hard moments, I mean, probably the number one thing that sticks out to me, that literally, there's 2 moments when I almost stopped doing the podcast full on. Like, I was done. I was like, that's it. I'm done. It's not happening anymore. And the first one was actually a long time ago. The first 100 episodes. It was around episode 55 or 60. And that was when I was doing 2 episodes a week, which was, again, talking about things I wish I could kind of go back and change. That's one of them. Because when I was doing 2 episodes a week, there was a lot of content in the beginning. I was just like trying to get content. So there was a lot of stuff. There was a lot of great stuff that came out of that. Because sometimes there would be these wonderful moments that if I was obsessing over what I was going to talk about, wouldn't have happened. You know, but then also it's the flip side of that. I'm so worried about making sure I have 2 episodes a week that, there's a lot of people in those early days that listen to my podcast and they were like, wow, this is not that great. And then they've just never tuned in again. And I say to them, hey, like, it's been 3 years. Maybe you could give me another chance. And the reality is sometimes that's going to happen. You know, when you're not, I wasn't as focused as I am now, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And But the number one thing was the editing of those 2 episodes a week. And I mean, it was killing me. I had only been doing it for a year, but there are some, I mean, if you look at it as far as if I did 1 episode a week, I would have only had 52 episodes, you know? But I was over 60, and it was like November, I think. And it was like, holy cow, okay, this is a lot. And big shouts to Mr. Brandon Bowden, who, without him, I would have stopped doing the podcast for sure, 100%. I confided in him, as I do with a lot of things in this life, and I said, man, I think I'm done. I can't do this anymore, you know? And I was obsessing over the numbers and stuff like that, and I was like, no one cares, like, this isn't fun for me anymore, and it was mostly just because I was burning myself out. And he was like, well, dude, if you're just worried about the editing, he's like, I'll do that. You know, that's what he does. He's a producer. So him jumping in when he did saved the podcast for sure in the early days. Like, for sure, without him, I don't know what would have happened. It would have been really scary to think that I would have stopped that early on, because some really cool things have happened because of the podcast. And that wouldn't have happened if I wasn't doing this podcast. And I've met some really cool people that I wouldn't have met at that point if I wasn't doing the podcast, and had some really fun experiences. So I'm really grateful for that. But that's one thing that definitely, burning out is a big thing. I was speaking earlier about the 3 people. You know, I said to them all, like, hey, when you guys start, do not start off doing a weekly show. Ease your way into it, because you're going to burn yourself out. And unfortunately, they didn't do that. And, you know, and I got love for these people. I'm not like talking smack or anything, but just, I was like, guys, like you're going to burn yourself out. And that's what happened. And that really, really bums me out, because like I enjoyed what they were doing. And, you know, someone got really obsessed over the numbers and quit really early in. And I'm like, man, like you can't do that, you know? And if you reach out to people to do interviews and they say no, or they just ignore you, like, that's part of the game. You know how many times I've been ignored or left on red when I've reached out to multiple people? I made a goal for myself this year that I was going to reach out to at least 5 people that I thought were going to say no. And unfortunately, all of them left me on red. But that's okay. Like, it's not a big deal, because at the end of the day, you know, I'm not as worried about, you know, having certain people on, you know, I want to just have fun, man. And, you know, yes, I think it's important to pay attention to who you're having on, and, you know, making sure you're not always having the same people on. Because I want to talk to people. I want to learn things about people. And that's really what this is all about now. It's just me having fun, me having a creative outlet, you know. But the other thing, Woody, to answer your question, something that really, honestly, was pretty much going to be the death of the Hodder show. I've talked about it lots before, but just to answer the question, late 2019, 3 things happened. That was, all of them were basically could have been death blows, to be honest with you. One of which was my Mac died, and still to this day, it worked for a little while there, and I was super excited. Now it's dead again. Such is the way. And I don't have the money for a new computer, so I just have to deal. And thank God for the laptop that I have. It is keeping the show going. This laptop that my sister let me borrow like 6 years ago. So that's my sister Brittany for that, because this podcast wouldn't be happening anymore. I say that, but I'd figure it out. You know what I mean? I'd figure it out. But that was one thing. The other thing was the program that I was using to edit the podcast that was making it way easier ended up not working anymore, because Brendan had to move on and I was like, yeah, obviously I understand. He was getting really busy, and I'm like, there's no stress, man. But I was still using the program that he was using, but I couldn't use it on this laptop. So that was a second thing that was like, I got to go back to using Audacity after using Adobe Audition for like 2 years. It's like, oh, shoot. So that honestly was that really sucked. But the third thing that was the biggest thing, honestly, was I lost my SoundCloud account. And what happened basically was I was using SoundCloud from day one, as some of you guys may know. And I mean, I had some decent numbers on SoundCloud for a while there. I was happy with that. And, what ended up happening was, I didn't know this, but SoundCloud has a limit to how much stuff you can have uploaded. And I got to episode, I think it was 239. It was my man Kyle from the Crease Rule. It was his episode. Because I uploaded it. Then he messaged me the day it came out and was like, hey man, isn't the episode up today? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, I don't see it. And I was like, what? So I went and looked, and it wasn't there, and that had never happened before. So I messaged SoundCloud, who's never let me down. I've been a paying customer for almost 4 years. Yeah, it was 4 years. The week of my 4-year anniversary of giving them $20 a month. And they were like, yeah, man, sorry, you're at your limit. And I was like, what? Like, I have well over 250 hours of content, and now I hit the limit? Like, what? And it's the way their system is. I was really mad about it at the time. Now I understand. I'm maybe still a little bitter about it. But I said to them, hey, like, I've been giving you guys $20 a month for like 4 years, and this has never come up. You don't have this anywhere in your system. And they're like, it's not usually a problem. And they're like, oh, just go delete some of your old stuff. And I'm like, my back catalog still was getting plays up to like episode 30 or 40. I'm like, I can't do that, because every time I upload an episode, I'm going to have to get rid of an old episode. I'm like, I can't do that. That's how podcasting is. Even up to this day, there are times where people will go back to episode 1, 2, 3, 4. One of my most popular episode by far of the show is, what episode is it? There's a Lane Staley episode I did. That was like episode like 17 or something like that. It's my most played episode to this day. Nothing compares to it. It was at well over 1,000 downloads at that point. Excuse me. And I said that. I said, look, like, I can't get rid of this, man. And they were like, sorry, we can't help you. And I went, okay, well then I'd like a refund for the month, because I already paid for the month. And I said, well, I can't use your service. And they were like, nah. I was like, okay, so after 4 years of, I am still pretty bitter about it, I'm just realizing now, but I was like, so after 4 years of giving you all this money, that's it, eh? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, all right, take care. So, yeah, that sucked. That really sucked. So I got that episode out, and then basically I was like, I think that's it. I've lost the Mac, I lost my program, and now I've lost my hosting site. And it was a rough one, I'm not gonna lie. Because I was like, I can't, and I couldn't really, like, I was like, I can't really justify spending this money anymore anyway. Like, I'm broke as it is. And, but it was because I was with SoundCloud for so long. If I could go back, I wouldn't have signed up with SoundCloud in the beginning. But I had built an audience on there. And, leaving that was really hard. And humongous shout outs to Anchor, because Anchor saved my podcast. Straight up. If it wasn't for Anchor.fm, I don't think I'd still be doing this podcast, honestly. Or I at least would have taken a very long hiatus, which would have killed the podcast, honestly. At least I believe it would have. So, whatever. Maybe a long hiatus would have helped. I have no idea. But for me, anytime a podcast takes a long hiatus, unless it's a seasonal podcast, that's totally different. But for me, when I get into a podcast that's a weekly show, and then I don't get that content for months on end for no reason, I'm like, it bums me out, And I mean, stuff happens, obviously, but like, in my situation, I was like, okay, this might do it. But big shout out to Anchor.fm, and huge shout out to Jason Reese and J. Bridges Alerts for, I remember Jason sitting in your office, man, and I was just like, frig, like, I don't know, man, I think I might be done. And you were just like, oh, stop. Like, You love doing this too much. So, and honestly, what ended up happening was I had to basically start from scratch. I've had to start from absolute scratch again. But I was on episode 240 on my podcast. And I was 4 years in, and I had to literally start over from scratch. I started using the program that I used when I started podcasting. I lost all my fan base on SoundCloud, which honestly was a pretty decent amount of people, and they just didn't care to look up my podcast, I guess. Which is fine. They had the SoundCloud app, they used it, and I mean, it sucks, but I was like, you know what? It was really humbling, and it honestly made me fall in love with podcasting again. So from that experience came some really good lessons. So Woody, I hope that answers your question, buddy. I'm not sure if you're still in the chat here, but I hope that answers your question. I'm sorry that it took me so long to answer. We got Josh Koval here from Still Loading Podcast, one of the best podcasts on the internet, folks. Cheers, buddy. I thought I was going to be way deeper into the beers at this point, and this is my second one. That's how much I've been talking. Holy cow. But glad to see you, Josh. No worries at all, buddy. Adam Lintloff. So each podcast should have sponsored by Brittany Hodder. Pretty much. That's the way it should be. Because honestly, without her, in the early days when I asked to borrow her laptop, I didn't know I was going to have it all this time later. But it's been over 5 years that I've had this laptop, and it's been basically running the Hodder Show empire. So, yeah, big shouts to Brittany for that. Josh Koval, SoundCloud is awful for podcasts. I dropped my account early on too. Yeah, man. I wish I really. The only reason I went with SoundCloud in the beginning was because of the pricing. And I mean, if I could go back, I would have never have done that. I recommend Anchor to everybody now, mostly because it's free. But obviously, there are benefits to being on I think you're on Libsyn, stuff that you pay for because the statistics are way better. They're going to. It's just, I find with a paid service, it's just, there's going to be a little bit better stuff. Basically is what I'm trying to say. Because Anchor is fantastic, and they've never let me down. Their customer service is awesome. When I transferred my podcast over, I had a lot of questions about bandwidth and stuff. And they were like, it will never be a problem. And I'm like, that's good to know, because I don't want to go through this again. So, humongous shoutouts to Anchor. Jason Reese, my door is always open. I appreciate you, brother. Cheers, buddy. Thank you for everything. Ryan Wood, is there a guest you wish you could bring on to an episode? I mean, there's several. As far as guests that I really want to have on, Barry Stock from Today's Grace and Mean Beard is a big one. I'd love to have Barry on. I would love to. There's a few random musicians I'd really love to speak with, and one of which is Ryan McCombs from Soil, and he was in Drowning Pool for a while too. I love his voice, and I just feel like he doesn't do podcasts or anything like that. So I feel like it would be a really cool interview because he seems like a really cool, down-to-earth guy. He just doesn't really like doing press, from what I can gather. And I'd be like, I'm not press. I'm just a fan who wants to hear your story. So that's something for sure. But there's lots of people. There's people that, I want to have Shannon from Till Death on. I'd love to talk with him. We've shot the breeze more than once, and it's always a blast. There's lots of people from the Mean Beard crew I'd love to have on. I would really love to have Jason Reese from J Digital Arts on. That'd be fun. But that is definitely going to happen. It's just a matter of getting in person to do it. That's the only thing holding it back. I want to do it in person. And truth be told, he was my pick for episode 300. It was the episode 5 years in the making, but unfortunately, I knew it wasn't going to happen with COVID and everything. I was like, I can't really come down to see you. And, by the time I could, I just knew it was going to be tricky, so, excuse me. But it's definitely going to happen. It's probably going to happen sooner rather than later. So look forward to that. I'd love to have Ryan Wood on and Sam Luxton from Mikes and Beers. Excuse me. That'd be great. That'd be a lot of fun. Get drunk with the Mikes and Beers crew again. It's been a while. That'd be a good time. Is there anyone else off the top of my head? I mean, there's people like I would love to have. There's some people I've reached out to. I guess I could talk about like. There's a couple podcasts I've been following that I really enjoy. One podcast I've been following for years and we've never really linked up to do anything is a podcast called The Amazing Nerd Show. I love their podcast. Kristen and Damon are awesome and it just never linked up. And I'm like, I messaged them the other day and I'm like, dudes, let's make something happen, And they were like, we're in. Let's just, I got to get myself moved and then we'll go from there. But that's going to be great. Podcast called The GameCube Was Cool. Great gaming podcast all about the GameCube. And if you guys know me, I love the GameCube. So that would be something great. For those who don't know, I actually used to do a gaming podcast. And, I really do miss doing gaming talk. Because, I'm nowhere near as much of a gamer as I used to be. Especially with the fact of being a gamer enough to do a podcast about it or like do episodes about it necessarily, but like having people on the show who are big gamers and talking about their podcasts, I think that would be a slam dunk. I really want to have Josh Covam from So Loading Podcast on, but again, I know that's happening soon, so that's going to be a good time. I hope that answers your question, Woody. So I don't have any like super awesome answers, but for me, those are a few for sure. Adam Lintlop, if you were a superhero, would your name be based on your personality or your abilities? I have no idea. Would depend on what my ability is, I guess. Okay, here's what I want from you, Adam. I want you to tell me what you think my superpower would be and what my name would be. I want to hear it from you because I got nothing good. I always say flying is like my big one because just like I'm lazy and I love to fly places. That's a big one for me for sure. Josh Koval, if you could make a dream band, who would be in it? Guitarist, bassist, drummer, vocalist. This is something I've thought about a lot, and I'm going to give you the bank because I know it off the top of my head. The drummer would be Morgan Rose from Seven Dust and also a solo artist because he's my favorite drummer and he's not my favorite drummer. He's one of my favorite drummers and also he's a killer vocalist, which is why I'd really want him in. As far as bassist, there's not really any bass players I'm like chomping at the bit to have. For the sake of argument, I guess we could say what is the bass player from Five Finger Death Punch's name? Can't remember his damn name. The bass player from Five Finger Death Punch. Can't remember his name right now. Because I love his style, and also he does great backing vocals as well. As far as guitar players, there's two that I would lose it if they were working together. And that's Clint Lowry from Seven Dust, who is one of my favorite guitar players and musicians, but is also a killer vocalist. And if you want to know how much of a fan I am of Clint Lowry, you only need to look to this. Because I have Clint Lowry's Hello Demons Meet Skeletons full-on like book record special thing that he did for his solo project at the time, Hello Demons Meet Skeletons. I'm a huge Clint Lowry fan. Like he's someone too. I would lose it if I could interview Clint Lowry. That would be I don't know if I could physically do that interview because I'm such a fan of his. But he's someone for sure, and also he's a killer vocalist. I sense a theme here. You guys sense a theme here? I want a bunch of killer vocalists who also are great at their instruments. And then I would want Barry Stock from 30 Days Grace playing guitar as well. I think I would want Barry and Clint to kind of trade off playing leads and rhythms because I love both their lead playing so much. But I feel like Barry's not known as a lead player, but he can shred. And a lot of people don't know that. He can absolutely shred. And I would love to see that happen. But then again, I mean, obviously so can Clint. But they both got the riffs. And rounding everything out with a vocalist, very easy for me, it would be Ivan Moody from Five Finger Death Punch. Morgan Rose, the bassist from Five Finger Death Punch, whose name I can't remember off the top of my head right now, and I'm really embarrassed. Clint Lowry, Barry Stock, Ivan Moody from Five Finger Death Punch. You put those 5 guys in a group, forget about it. Just, I would lose my shit. I would. It would be fantastic. And the thing is like, I can already hear in my head, like, Morgan and Ivan kind of like trading off lines and stuff like that. And I'm just like, oh, it would be so cool. So, hope that answers your question, Josh. That's one for sure. That's my biggest one, I think. I think that would make TJ just absolutely lose it. It really would. It really would. Jason Reese, gonna happen for sure, man. It's gonna happen. The interview with Jason Reese is gonna happen. It's just a matter of when. Probably after I get moved, we'll make something happen. I think that would be awesome to do. Shout out to everybody who is, stuck around for the live cast and everything. I know it's a Saturday night at like what time is it now? 6:46. I know that a lot of people are out doing stuff, especially because patios are open and everything. So I appreciate you guys hanging out. Those people who are. Excuse me. Oh, that Moosehead Lager is tasting really good right now, folks. Josh Colville, what's your most off-the-wall idea for a podcast episode? For a podcast episode. Adam, I see your thing, but I can't click on it, or else it'll end the live stream. So, I don't know, I don't know what that was, but you're gonna have to walk me through it. I can see it's My Hero Academia, Tishaharu Tatsumutsu, Toya. I can't really read it because of the link, but you're gonna have to walk me through it, buddy. Because I'm sorry, because I can't click on it because it's not an actual hyperlink. But Josh, as far as my most off the wall podcast episode idea, I don't know. I don't really have like episode ideas. I have podcast ideas, honestly. For me, if I had my way, I would do like 7 podcasts. Honestly, I really, really would. There's one thing that, like, for me, a couple of podcast ideas that I have. Shouts to everybody who just came in. How's it going? What's up? Be sure to come on in the chat and ask questions or say hey so I know who you are and who's hanging out. Appreciate you coming out. One thing recently, and I'm not going to say anything about names or anything like that, but there is someone who approached me recently about a podcast idea where basically myself and this person sit down in front of microphones and basically we discuss certain topics, but like only the way that we can do it, So it's like, it'd be like, say, for example, me trying to sell this person on how great pro wrestling is, and he hates pro wrestling. Or like him trying to sell me on how awesome YouTube boxing is, and I hate YouTube boxing. But then also it's like we team up to like kind of have a fun rant about something specific. That's one thing, but as far as, podcast ideas, I mean, I am obsessed right now with like horror, what am I trying to say here? Horror audio dramas. Basically like old radio shows from back in the day, audio dramas. I'm obsessed with horror audio dramas, and that's something that I am so obsessed with right now, and I really want to do. But I don't know, we'll see what happens. Wrestling podcast, for sure. That's something that's always been on my bucket list. I'd love to do that one day. There was a podcast idea. This is pretty off the wall, Josh. There was a podcast idea that myself and actually Adam had. And it was called, well, it had a couple different names, but the gist idea of it was it was a couple of stalls. a couple of stalls. And it was literally two people sitting in a bathroom stalls. And they're having a conversation about life, about whatever. One person may lead the conversation interviewing them, but it's two people sitting in bathroom stalls having a conversation about life. And I thought that was hilarious. But as far as like an actual episode, I mean, looking back, I had some pretty ridiculous episodes from back in the day. I did an episode called Guitar Cast. That was literally me playing guitar and talking, and that was a really weird episode. I had episodes where I was like driving in the car. Those are always kind of strange, but I hope that kind of answers your question, buddy. I don't know. And I really have a lot, I guess. Oh my God, going here. Emily, what's up? How's it going? Thanks for tuning in. Jason Reese, wrestling podcast. Yes, definitely that was one for sure. I would love to do one day for sure. Truth be told, if I'm being honest with the people who are here, I had full intentions of doing a wrestling podcast and it was all ready to go. And then just basically COVID happened. But also the reality is me doing another interview podcast would be tricky. Because of my timing. So it's like, it's not really, doable right now. But it's still something I'd love to do one day. So it's for sure something I'd love to do. Definitely. Adam Alap. His fat can store kinetic energy, which he can convert into offensive muscle at the cost of his fat, thus weakening his defense is his power. I'm for it. So basically, my fat can store energy, turn it into muscle, and I can fight people. That's pretty metal. I'm in. That's pretty metal. But as far as my announcement as to who's going to be my guest next week on episode 300. Now, one person currently watching this already knows who that guest is. But for those of you who don't know who my guest is, or those who are watching this afterwards, I'm really, really excited about it. It was a long time coming because we've been talking about doing this. I've mentioned these people quite a bit in this podcast already. It's not Moosehead. I'm thrilled to announce that next week for episode 300 of The Hodder Show, my first in-person interview after year and a half, give or take, is going to be my friends and the two people who run, without a doubt, my favorite place to eat in the entire world. You guys can't see it. Wait. Peter Burgers. That's right, folks. My first time ever... Whatever, screw it. My first time ever having a restaurant on the podcast, so to speak. Roy and Nicole from Peter Burgers are going to be on the Hodder Show next week for episode 300. I am hyped. It is one of my favorite episodes of my podcast, and that is a huge statement for me to make. They were awesome. Their story is really, really fun. It's not like, yeah, we wanted to start a burger restaurant and then we did. No, there is so much to this story, and they have such a great way of telling it. They're fantastic storytellers. That's why I really wanted to do it with them. And it just kind of happened naturally where I realized, hey, this is the first in-person interview I'm doing. Episode 300. I mean, what else can you say? It's a match made in heaven. I'm super excited about it. You're going to see a bunch of stuff hyping it up next week. I cannot wait to share this interview with you guys. It is an audio-only interview because I can't do video in-person interviews at the moment. But man, when I say, like, okay, this podcast is really, really, really good and it's my own content, you can take that to the bank. Because again, like I said earlier, I'm really hard on myself, and it's great. And it's all because of Roy and Nicole. I mean, seriously, I really just kind of let them go and tell their story in their own words. And obviously I kind of steer the ship, but like, it was so cool getting to hear their story, and they have a really fun story. So we're very, very excited about that. I know they're excited about it. Unfortunately, they couldn't be here for the live cast because they're actually working at the Memorial Center here in Peterborough tonight, providing food for everyone who's at the concert, seeing the Trews and Adam Gontier and Cale Gontier. But man, we're excited. I'm excited. There might be something going on with them as far as something to do with me. I don't know, but keep an eye on Pita Burgers because it is one of my favorite places to eat in the entire world, and they definitely deserve your support, and I cannot wait for this episode to come out next week. It is going to be awesome. And there's going to be more local businesses that I'm going to speak with as well, for sure, because that's something I've never really done on the podcast. I kind of tried to focus my efforts on people from other places, if that makes sense. And I've kind of realized after doing that interview with them that, like, hey, there's all these people around me that have a story to tell. And I want to hear it. Everyone has a story. And, that's something that I'm definitely going to look into doing heading into episode 300. That's something you can for sure look forward to. It's going to be great. And there's tons more musicians that I'm going to speak with. Couple people for sure. I can tell you guys right now that my boy Ev Gallows from Judgment's going to be on the show again, coming up soon, talking about their latest EP, which is amazing to find alive. I've got some other really cool guests lined up that I don't have stuff fully recorded for yet, but that's going to be great. I'll tell you guys right now, I've spoken with Andy from Revive the Rose. If you guys don't know Revive the Rose, they are blowing up right now. They are going to be a huge band. And I'm going to have Andy on the podcast at some point. I don't know when specifically. We'll see what happens. But hopefully the next couple of weeks we'll get something going. But, man, the future is looking bright for the Harder Show. I'm excited. I'm really excited for next week. I hope that you guys are too. It's going to be fun, man. It's going to be a lot of fun. I cannot wait to drop this episode. I'm really proud of it. And I know that... I know that they're really happy with it too. So, thank you for everybody for all of the support in the last 300 episodes, man. It's been a wonderful journey, and I cannot. What am I trying to say here? Basically, I'm really in love with podcasting, and I love doing this. I have no intentions of stopping, no matter what. At this point, I kind of feel like I can't stop. I almost feel like I'm like that band from your hometown that after 5 years, after like 20 years, they're still trying to make it. You know what I mean? And I realized this year, especially after speaking with a lot of different people, that, I have built up a reputation within the creative community, kind of, in a way, mostly with musicians, obviously, because that's my bread and butter. I've built up this reputation and this thing of like, oh yeah, the Harder Show, and I never really thought of that until I was speaking with someone about it, and they were like, dude, like, I was a fan of your podcast, now I'm on your podcast, that's really cool for me. And I'm like, oh shit, like, I never thought of that. So, man, it's been a blast. It's been so fun. And I thank every single one of you for all of the support and for being a part of this, because it is, it's fun and I love doing it. So cheers to you guys. Thank you so much. Clank. I always do the clank because, it's not going to make a sound. But I think that's going to about do it for us here on the Saturday Nights I Write for a live cast. To everybody who tuned in, thank you so very much. It means the world to me that you took the time out of your Saturday evening to come hang out with me, even if you just did for a little bit. Again, it's a Saturday night. I know patios are open and stuff like that, so I know that people are going to probably sitting at a patio right now. But either way, I very much appreciate it. Thank you very much again to everybody who helps make this podcast possible. and everybody who has supported this podcast from day one. All my friends and family. You guys know who you all are. Big shout outs to Jason Reese and Jay Bridges Larch for everything you do for this podcast. Big shout outs to Joe from Mean Beard for everything that you do for this podcast, brother. I appreciate you. Going to have Joe on again soon. That's going to be a lot of fun. Big shout outs to Roy and Nicole from Peter Burgers for their support, and also, of course, the fact that they're going to be on the show next week. Very, very excited about that. Thank you again, everybody who's in the chat. Make sure I didn't miss anything. Oh, Emily, moving to Peterborough. Awesome. Yeah, you got to check out Peter Burgers. Got to check out Peter Burgers for sure. They are well worth the support, and you checking them out. Definitely so. They're awesome people, and they make phenomenal food. Phenomenal. So be sure to go check them out. But guys, that's going to do it for me today. Thank you so very much again for tuning in, and I'll catch you on episode 300 of The Hotter Show. Take it easy, guys.